The Jama-ah party is elated that one of its councillors is a member of the Johannesburg Mayoral Committee. Thapelo Ahmed will be responsible for development planning. The city faces leadership squabbles, and Jama-ah believes that co-governance and not coalitions is the progressive solution to improve service delivery in the city. He joins me now to discuss this further. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. No doubt you're dealing with a myriad of issues within the city in terms of finding a way forward to work together and improve governance and service delivery in the city. But maybe just start with that difference that you, as Jama-ah, have described as a difference between coalitions and co-governance. Talk us through that.
Oh, thank you so much, Rupua. Good day to you and the viewers at home. So the difference between coalition, it's an arrangement that whichever arrangement that the parties wants to sign, it's like a marriage contract, but it is in a context of a political space where there's a likelihood that the power sharing it's also contested on those tables. So co-governing is to negotiate based on the residents and the policy direction to give the administrators, who are the implementers, and us as local government being implementers, we give them a policy direction to implement. So when we are co-governing precisely with the executive mayor, we sit on the same table and he gives us a strategic direction to say, this is how we need to move. And then as parties who went to the polls in 2021, you should understand that we went to those polls to also govern, not to be spectators. So it is an opportunity, it's an equal opportunity for parties to demonstrate their abilities. Fortunate enough, where we are as a party, Jama-ah, we participated on local government the previous term in the sense of government of local unity. So at least we are familiar with the space and the setup. So we are co-governing, and then we are able to direct the policy implementation as a collaboration with other parties to say we sit down on the table and say our ethos, our values are aligned. So can we prioritize this on service delivery implementation?
Very interesting distinction that you've described there, in that you don't want to just be spectators within the local government. You want to govern and provide to the residents of the city. Does that perhaps align somewhat to what the DA has argued? And I want us to get into issues of service delivery and Eldorado Park, but before that, just your commentary around what the DA has said over the last few days, in that you broke down the, not you specifically, but the arrangement, the coalition arrangement in its entirety. You broke down that arrangement and that contract so that you could secure leadership positions. Basically, you were bought by a position to break down what was already existing. What is your thought to what they have argued over the last few days?
It's very interesting. We were never bought. If it's a personal interest, I personally was never bought. Like I said, we governed with partners in the government of local unity. When I came into the office as a party deployed by Jama-ah, which is the very same department that the executive mayor, Mayor Dada Morero, has had faith in me and confidence in me to say, retain that particular department. When we got there in that department, I personally was there as an MMC for the period of 9 months. And when I reached there, the department itself had reached a ceiling. The KPIs were sitting between 45%, 47%. When election happened, unfortunately, because it's a coalition setup or co-governance arrangement, when we were in Brixton, if you remember the day what happened in Brixton, so we lost power, we lost the expression. When I left the office, we were sitting at 75% on the KPIs of the department. So we are not only there to have
positions of leadership,
or to wrestle each other, you know, as shadow wrestlers or shadow karate people who are fighting, you know. So we are there because we went to the elections. So it's an opportunity for us to say we are capable independently from bigger minorities, because none of us has reached a threshold to govern outright. So it's an opportunity to say, let us demonstrate. This is why in the city of Johannesburg's context, the power sharing is different. The power sharing is unique. The MMC who's responsible for finances is not the MMC who came from the ANC, which is the bigger minority, but is an MMC who came from the minorities, the minority parties, which were called minority opposition parties. If you look at the speaker also came from the minority parties. So there's a proper accountability, there's a proper oversight on the entire executive. Yes, and there's a proper allocations of budget. It's not in a sense that because we are a bigger minority, as ANC, we have bigger wards for argument's sake. So power sharing, or the priority, has to be on those wards. In a coalition, there are parties that do not have wards. Let's argue that they do not have wards, and they are participating in government, and they are participating in stabilizing this particular government. So the MMC who's there and not being conflicted, he or she is able to share the spoils across the constituencies.
Let's get into those issues, just based on the explanation that you've just given to us now of service delivery within the city. And over the last few days, you would have seen Eldorado Park has been quite a point of contention, in that one of the other smaller coalition partners, the PA, the councillors there, have not been delivering on anything that they promised in the November 2021 or leading up to those elections. Your leader visited, and I'm sure you all have had engagements of what the pressing matters are for the community. What are those, and what are you discussing as immediate solutions to the residents of Eldorado Park?
Thanks that you brought it up. Our party leader, Honorable Hanif Hendricks, of course, he visited, he did his own oversight, and he has made he made a commitment to the communities first, to say, I will raise this issue to Parliament, because there was an engagement from the presidential delegation sometimes in 2013. So as a party that is in the opposition, it is our fiduciary duty to also hold those who are in power accountable. So he raised the issue in Parliament. I participated in that meeting as well, because it was a virtual meeting. He raised the issue of Eldorado Park. We still are waiting for the timelines. I know that on that level he's engaging with the minister responsible for that particular, rather for safety in particular. The activists on the ground, they also raised that issue on a national level. They raised it on a provincial level. You know, MEC Faith Mazibuko was with us after we were sworn in. The executive mayor, Dada Morero, was there with his team. Immediately when we were sworn in, we were not confused by the power, or rather went to the party and celebrate. But we understood that this takes precedence. This is why the Mayor Dada Morero, with his delegation, immediately we responded to the issue of Eldorado Park. But how do we infuse and incorporate our participation as planning, development planning? We have a single law enforcement unit in development planning, but mainly deals with an issue of encroachment, illegal erected structures in the city of Johannesburg, which would also contribute to the lawlessness within the city or within the community, you know. So we also are going to have a collaborative approach with the MMC responsible for safety and JMPD and the executive mayor himself, and say, let's sit down, let us come out with a bylaw. There's a draft policy bylaw, by the way, from the JMPD side. So it's almost done, and it's almost going to public participation. But how do we collaborate with JMPD from planning and development point of view?
We have to wrap, but I have to ask you, have you spoken to these PA councillors about accountability for lack of service delivery in that community? Yes or no? We have to wrap.
We've spoken to them because they were part of the delegation, and one of them is a member of mayoral committee. But however, they were frustrated because it was a marriage arrangement. They were accompanying government. But this time around, it is different. We are definitely going to resolve the issue.